Hello, it's Monday, July 15. My name is Katarzyna Wierbol and welcome to Against the Tide News. The Belt and Road Initiative. China admits it's a tool for military expansion. During the fourth forum for senior defense officials from Caribbean and South Pacific countries held in China, Chinese Defense Minister Wei Fenghe said China is willing to deepen military exchanges and cooperation with the Caribbean countries and Pacific Island countries under the framework of the Belt and Road Initiative. The Chinese military stands ready to deepen mutual trust and consolidate friendship with the militaries of the Caribbean countries and Pacific Island countries, Wei said, adding that cooperation will be promoted in such areas as anti-terrorism, peacekeeping, and disaster relief to strengthen exchanges and cooperation under the framework of the Belt and Road Initiative. This is what Han Yashen, our correspondent in Taiwan, had to say. This statement from the Chinese Defense Minister is the first official statement showing what the Belt and Road Initiative really is. It shows that the Chinese People's Liberation Army is an important tool for building the Belt and Road Initiative. Americans have been warning us about it for at least the past 2-3 years, but that wasn't a statement from another country. Now, we have an official statement that under the Belt and Road Initiative, there must be a cooperation in the military field. Polish authorities released Chinese spy from prison while Chinese Foreign Affairs Minister visits Poland. Piotr D., a former Polish counterintelligence official suspected of spying for China, has been set free on bail on July 9th. He was arrested back in January along with Chinese national Wei Wang, a sales director of Huawei's Polish division. Wang will remain in custody for at least another 3 months. Piotr D., who previously worked for the Internal Security Agency, was working for Orange Polska, a telecommunications provider and Huawei's main domestic partner in Poland, at the time of his arrest. The court accused him of providing information about a secret project concerning security structures in the ICT network. He was released on a 120,000 zloty bail, equivalent to $31,500. His lawyers say the charges against him have not been dropped. It's important to point out that his release was announced during the visit of China's Foreign Affairs Minister Wang Yi to Poland. Huawei's grip on Poland growing stronger as Chinese Foreign Affairs Minister visits the country. During the Chinese Foreign Affairs Minister's visits to Poland, Huawei informed that it's ready to invest 3 billion zloty, nearly $800 million in Poland in the next 5 years. Ryszard Hordyński, the director of Huawei's Polish branch, said, Huawei wants to develop and invest in Poland, but these investments have to make sense from a business perspective. It means that the investment will depend on Huawei's role in the 5G rollout in Poland. Back in January, Polish government officials were ready to exclude Huawei from the 5G plans following the arrest of a Chinese spy. However, now it seems that the question of whether or not the Polish government will allow the Chinese company to build a 5G network still remains open. Wang Yi, Chinese Foreign Affairs Minister, met with Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki. Morawiecki said that Poland opposes protectionism and unilateralism, welcomes China's efforts to expand the opportunities for trade and investment in Poland, and will treat foreign enterprises in an open and transparent manner. Wang Yi also met with Polish President Andrzej Duda. Experts explained the dangers behind Huawei. Following a research done by the Henry Jackson Society and Christopher Balding, the Telegraph reported that Huawei employees have far closer links with military-backed cyber agencies than previously thought. John Hemmings, a director at the Henry Jackson Society, told Forbes, "At the very early stages of analyzing this data trove, we are finding that these CVs show a pattern connecting Huawei employees to the military and Ministry of State Security. While one does not find some former spooks in Western telecoms, finding these connections in an authoritarian state is extremely different. Once again, we see why Huawei's inclusion in Western 5G must be considered very carefully." The analysis of employee CVs shows that Huawei staff had worked as agents within China's Ministry of State Security, worked on joint projects with the Chinese People's Liberation Army, were educated at China's leading military academy, and had been employed with a military unit linked to a cyber attack on U.S. corporations. Hundreds of civilians killed in Russia-led assault. For the past 2 months, in the Syrian province of Idlib, over 500 civilians have been killed as a result of Russia-led assault on the last rebel bastion in northwestern Syria. Among those killed are 130 children. The Syrian army was joined by Russian jets on April 26 in their attack against parts of the rebel-held Idlib province. Fadel Abdul Ghani, chairman of the Syrian Network for Human Rights, a non-governmental and non-profit organization that documents human rights violations in Syria, said, "The Russian military and its Syrian ally are deliberately targeting civilians with a record number of medical facilities bombed." According to the UN, over 20 hospitals have been hit since late April. In a statement, Dr. Kaula Sava, vice president of the US-based Union of Medical Care and Relief Organizations, said, "To have these medical facilities bombed and put out of service in less than 2 months is no accident. Let's call this by what it is, a war crime." Based on reports by first responders and witnesses, the US-based Human Rights Watch said that the Russian-Syrian military operation used cluster munitions and incendiary weapons in the attacks, along with large airdropped explosive weapons in populated civilian areas. The Volunteer, the true story of the resistance hero who infiltrated Auschwitz. The Volunteer is a new book by British author and former war reporter Jack Fairweather. The book explores the story of cavalry captain Witold Pilecki, one of Poland's greatest World War II heroes, who volunteered to be imprisoned in the German death camp Auschwitz as part of a Polish resistance operation. In 1940, Pilecki volunteered to be captured and sent to the Auschwitz concentration camp, where he gathered intelligence, organized inmate resistance, and managed to escape from the camp after over 2.5 years of forced labor. Pilecki later wrote a report that takes us inside the German death camp and gives us an inside look at the slave labor and the mass extermination that took place. Jack Fairweather, who also served as the Daily Telegraph's Baghdad bureau chief and as a video journalist for the Washington Post in Afghanistan, read that report in 2012 and became captivated with Pilecki's story. Fairweather first heard of Pilecki's story from his friend and fellow war correspondent who had just come back from Auschwitz. "This was quite stunning to me and upended my whole sense of what Auschwitz was," says Fairweather. "That people could be fighting back against the Nazis at the heart of what was their greatest evil." You can find an interview with the author of the book conducted by our correspondent in London on our YouTube channel, Make Poland Great Again. Death threats ahead of pro-life movie screening. 2 Canadian independent theater owners contacted police after they received death threats after announcing the screening of the pro-life movie Unplanned. They considered the threats as credible and said they were fearful for their families. One of the owners has decided to cancel the screening of the movie. Some theaters have decided to increase security during the screening of the film. Cinedicom president and Canadian distributor of Unplanned, B.J. McKelvey, said, "It's unfortunate it's come to that. It's just a movie. The topic is certainly a hot topic. However, it's just a movie. I find it ironic they talk about choice, pro-choice, 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 but they're not giving people a choice to go see the movie." Unplanned hit the screens in Canada on July 12th. Frenchman dies after doctors stop giving him food and water. Vincent Lambert died after court approved to stop giving him food and water. Lambert suffered a traumatic brain injury 11 years ago after a motorcycle accident which left him paralyzed. However, he was able to breathe on his own. On July 2nd, following the decision of the court, Lambert's doctors followed through with the procedure of cessation of care and stopped giving him food and water. Lambert's wife, along with 6 of his 8 siblings, wanted him to be taken off life support. However, his parents disagreed. Lambert's mother turned to the UN Human Rights Council in an effort to save her son. "Without your intervention, my son Vincent Lambert will be euthanized because of his mental handicap," she said. "He's in a state of minimal consciousness, but he is not a vegetable." In May, when learning about his planned death, he cried. In 2011, the Coma Science Group in Liège examined Lambert and found evidence that he was capable of feeling pain and that some of his emotions have been preserved. Nevertheless, Lambert died in a hospital on July 11th. He was 42 years old. Letter to the UN condemning China for the massive detention of Uyghurs. 22 UN countries signed a joint statement condemning the Communist Chinese government for the massive detention of Uyghurs and members of other ethnic minorities in camps in the Xinjiang province. Among the signatories were Britain, France, Germany, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada. The document is addressed to Michelle Bachelet, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights. The UN ambassadors expressed their concern about credible reports of arbitrary detention as well as widespread surveillance and restrictions, particularly targeting Uyghurs and other minorities in Xinjiang. We call on China to uphold its national laws and international obligations and to respect human rights and fundamental freedoms, including freedom of religion or belief in Xinjiang and across China, says the letter. We call also on China to refrain from the arbitrary detention and restrictions on freedom of movement of Uyghurs and other Muslims and minority communities in Xinjiang. On July 21st, demonstrations of support for the Uyghurs will take place all over the world. In Poland, protests in solidarity with Uyghurs will be organized by Against the Tide TV. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching and see you next Monday.